Imani Johnson stood at the window of her corner office, looking down at the airport runway where several Skyline International Airways planes gleamed in the morning sun. As vice president of operations, this view usually filled her with pride. Today, it only deepened her worry. Her father's company, built from nothing into one of the country's most respected airlines, was facing a problem she couldn't quite put her finger on. But something was definitely wrong. Imani turned away from the window and walked back to her desk, where dozens of customer complaint forms were spread out, too many for comfort, and all from the same premium international route. Not just the usual gripes about legroom or cold food, but mentions of missing items, unexplained charges, and rude staff. Her phone buzzed, a text from her father. "How's my favorite VP doing today?" Imani smiled despite her concerns. Malcolm Johnson had raised her alone after her mother died when Imani was just 12. He'd built his airline empire while never missing a school play or parent-teacher conference. Now, at 62, he was thinking about retirement, and Imani knew these problems needed to be fixed before they tarnished his legacy. She picked up one complaint form that mentioned a flight attendant charging a passenger extra for a blanket that should have been free. Another reported missing expensive duty-free items. A third claimed their first-class meal was noticeably different from what the menu promised. Imani had tried bringing these issues to the attention of the route management team 3 months ago. They'd brushed her off. Normal fluctuations in customer satisfaction, Greg Porter, the head of route management, had said with a dismissive wave. Numbers are still within acceptable parameters. But the financial reports showed discrepancies too, Imani had pointed out, showing him the spreadsheets she'd personally analyzed. Inventory doesn't match what's being reported. Something's off. "With all due respect, Ms. Johnson," Greg had replied with a tight smile, "these are complex operational matters. I've been running this department for 15 years. Trust me, everything is fine." The memory of that conversation still made Imani's blood boil. She knew what was happening. They were dismissing her concerns because they saw her as just the boss's daughter who'd been handed a fancy title. Never mind her MBA from Wharton, her 5 years working her way up through different departments, or the fact that she'd spotted the accounting irregularity that saved the company millions last year. Imani sighed and gathered the complaints into a folder. She'd tried the official channels. Now it was time for something different. A knock on her door interrupted her thoughts. It was Zoe, her assistant. "Your 3 o'clock is here," Zoe said. "And your father called. He wants you to join him for dinner tonight with some investors." "Thanks, Zoe. Tell my 3 o'clock I'll be right with them." After her meeting, Imani closed her office door and pulled up the company's organizational chart on her computer. She focused on the premium international route that was causing problems, their flagship London to Singapore flight. She studied the crew roster, the scheduling patterns, and the management structure. The same names kept appearing. The same. Flight purser Tyler Williams had been on that route for 3 years without rotation. Several flight attendants had also been consistently assigned there, despite company policy of rotating staff every 8 months. The exceptions had been approved by, surprise, Greg Porter. Imani leaned back in her chair, thinking. Direct confrontation hadn't worked. A formal investigation would give the culprits time to cover their tracks. What she needed was irrefutable evidence of what was happening on those flights. An idea began to form. A crazy, possibly brilliant idea. That evening, over dinner with her father and the investors, Imani was uncharacteristically quiet, her mind still working through her plan. "Earth to Imani," her father said, smiling. "Mr. Chen asked about your new customer service initiative." "Oh, I'm sorry," Imani said, returning to the conversation. "Yes, the initiative is going well. We've seen a 15% improvement in satisfaction scores on domestic routes." As the investors chatted with her father, Imani watched him with admiration. Malcolm Johnson had started as a baggage handler, worked his way up to pilot, then mortgaged everything he owned to buy his first small aircraft. Now Skyline International, Airways had a fleet of 80 planes and routes to 47 countries. He'd built it all while facing down racism and skepticism at every turn. She couldn't let anyone damage what he'd created. After dinner, Malcolm invited her back to his home office. "You were somewhere else tonight," he said as he poured them both a small glass of scotch. "What's on your mind?" Imani hesitated. Her father respected her independence and she'd always tried to solve problems without running to him. But this plan was different. "Dad, I think there's something wrong on the London-Singapore route," she said, and explained the complaints and financial discrepancies she'd found. Malcolm frowned. "Have you talked to Greg about this?" "Yes." He dismissed it. Her father's expression darkened. "That doesn't sound right. I'll have a word with him." "No," Imani said quickly. "I don't think that's the way to handle this." "What do you mean?" Imani took a deep breath. "I think we need more information, hard evidence, and I have an idea about how to get it." She outlined her plan, watching her father's expression shift from surprise to concern to thoughtful consideration. "You want to go undercover as a flight attendant?" he finally asked. "That's unorthodox. But it could work," Imani insisted. "Nobody knows what I look like outside the executive floor. I've always kept a low profile, stayed out of the company newsletters and press. I could use Mom's maiden name. With your approval, for the accelerated training program, I could be on that route within 6 weeks." Malcolm walked to the window, his back to her as he considered. "It could be dangerous," he said finally. "If they're doing something illegal and they find out who you are." "I'll be on a plane full of people," Imani pointed out. "And we can have security personnel on board posing as passengers if you're worried." Malcolm turned back to her, studying her face. "You're just like your mother, you know. She never could turn away from a problem either." He sighed. "I don't like it, but I understand why you want to do it this way. You want to prove yourself." Imani nodded, grateful that he understood. "It's not just that. If we move officially, they'll destroy the evidence. We need to know exactly what's happening and who's involved before we act." "All right," Malcolm said after a long pause. "But we do this carefully. Only you, me, and Bernard from security know the real plan. For everyone else, you're taking a 6-week sabbatical to work on a special project." Imani hugged her father, feeling the familiar strength in his embrace. "Thank you for trusting me with this." "I've always trusted you," he said. "You've never given me reason not to." The next morning, Imani called in Zoe and told her she'd be taking a sabbatical for a special project. Then she drove to the Skyline Training Academy on the other side of the city. The director, Mrs. Patel, was surprised to see her. "Ms. Johnson, what can I do for you today?" Mrs. Patel asked, showing her into a modest office decorated with model airplanes and photographs of graduating classes. "I need your help with something confidential," Imani said. "I'm working on a special project for my father and I need to go through the flight attendant training program under a different name." Mrs. Patel's eyebrows rose nearly to her hairline, but to her credit, she asked no questions. "I see. And how soon would this need to happen?" "Immediately. And accelerated if possible. The standard program is 8 weeks. I need to be ready in 6. And I need to be assigned to the London-Singapore route upon completion." Mrs. Patel nodded slowly. "It can be done, but it won't be easy." "I'm not afraid of hard work," Imani said. "No, I don't imagine you are," Mrs. Patel replied with a small smile. "Very well. You'll begin on Monday. Report here at 6 a.m. Bring comfortable shoes." That weekend, Imani prepared herself mentally and physically for what lay ahead. She boxed up her designer clothes and jewelry, moved out of her downtown apartment into a modest rental closer to the training academy, and dyed her hair a slightly different shade. She would be Imani Thompson, using her mother's maiden name, a woman starting a new career after leaving a corporate job. On Sunday night, she stood in front of the mirror in her new apartment, trying to see herself as others would. Without the expensive clothes and the confidence that came from being the boss's daughter, she looked younger, more approachable, just another woman trying to make it in the world. "Hello," she said to her reflection, practicing a slightly different way of speaking, a bit less polished. "I'm Imani Thompson. Nice to meet you." She thought of her father, who had put everything on the line to build his company. She thought of the customers who trusted Skyline with their safety and comfort, and she thought of the people who believed she was nothing more than a nepotism hire. Time to prove them wrong, she whispered to herself. Tomorrow, she would become someone new, and soon she would know exactly what was happening on those flights. The alarm blared at 4:30 a.m., jolting Imani from a restless sleep. For a moment, she forgot where she was. The small rental apartment felt nothing like her spacious downtown condo. Then reality came rushing back. Today was her first day of flight attendant training. She dressed in the plain navy slacks and white button-up shirt that Mrs. Patel had specified, pulling her newly dyed hair into a neat bun. No makeup, no jewelry, except for a simple watch. Nothing that would make her stand out. The training center was already buzzing with activity when she arrived at 5:45 a.m. 23 other trainees milled around the lobby, most looking as nervous as she felt, though for different reasons. Thompson? A stern-looking woman with a clipboard approached her. Imani Thompson? Yes, that's me, Imani replied, trying to sound eager but not overly confident. I'm Diane Wu, your primary instructor. You're in Group C. Follow me. Imani and 5 other trainees followed Diane down a hallway lined with photographs of smiling flight attendants posed in front of Skyline aircraft. Imani recognized some of the locations: London, Tokyo, Sydney, routes that she'd helped develop marketing strategies for just last year. The training room was functional and no nonsense. Rows of desks facing a whiteboard, a partial aircraft cabin mock-up in the back corner, and walls covered with safety diagrams and emergency procedures. Take a seat, Diane instructed. Training begins in 5 minutes. Imani chose a desk in the middle row, not too eager in the front, not hiding in the back. A young man with bright eyes and nervous energy sat beside her. I'm Lee, he whispered, extending his hand. First day jitters, huh? Definitely, Imani admitted, shaking his hand. I'm Imani. Career change? Lee asked. Something like that, Imani replied. You? Fresh out of college. Always wanted to see the world. Their conversation was cut short as Diane called the class to order. Welcome to Skyline International Airways Flight Attendant Training Program, she announced. Look at the person to your left. Now look at the person to your right. Statistically, one of them won't complete this program. A ripple of nervous laughter moved through the room. That wasn't a joke, Diane continued flatly. This is an accelerated 6-week program. It's intensive, demanding, and deliberately stressful. We need to know you can handle pressure because at 35,000 feet, you are the first and sometimes only line of defense for passenger safety. Imani felt a twinge of guilt. Her father's influence had gotten her into this accelerated program while these other trainees had likely waited months for their spot. The first day was a blur of introductions, paperwork, uniform fittings, and a dizzying overview of what the next 6 weeks would entail. By the time they were dismissed at 6 p.m., Imani's head was spinning with information. Drinks? Lee suggested as they filed out. A bunch of us are going to that place across the street to decompress. Thanks, but I need to review today's material, Imani said. The truth was, she needed to call her father to update him. But she couldn't say that. Suit yourself, Lee shrugged. But all work and no play. Back in her apartment, Imani kicked off her sensible shoes and rubbed her aching feet. She'd spent years in boardrooms and behind desks. Standing all day was a new kind of exhaustion. She called her father from the burner phone they'd agreed to use. How was the first day? Malcolm asked when he picked up. Intense, Imani admitted. This isn't going to be as easy as I thought. Second thoughts? No, she said firmly. Just respect for what these people go through. We should probably review their compensation package when this is all over. Malcolm chuckled. That's my girl, always looking at the bigger picture. The next morning began with emergency procedures training. The instructors didn't ease them in. It was full immersion into worst-case scenarios. Water landing, Diane shouted. You have 90 seconds to evacuate this aircraft before it sinks. Go. Imani and her classmates scrambled through the procedures. They'd only read about yesterday. Securing loose items, assisting passengers with life vests, deploying the emergency slides that would become rafts. "Thompson, that raft won't inflate itself," Diane barked. Imani fumbled with the mechanism, her fingers suddenly clumsy under pressure. Lee stepped in, showing her the correct sequence. "Thanks," she whispered. "No problem," he replied. "I read the manual twice last night. Couldn't sleep." By week 2, Imani had settled into a routine. Days were spent learning everything from beverage service to handling medical emergencies, while evenings were dedicated to studying and brief calls with her father. The physical demands were unexpected. Hours of standing, demonstrating safety procedures, practicing carrying heavy service carts through narrow spaces. During their first practice service in the cabin mock-up, Imani spilled coffee on herself, and a passenger, actually their instructor, Roy. "Sorry," she gasped, mortified. "Never apologize like that," Roy said, staying in character as an irritated businessman. "It shows weakness. Say, 'I apologize for the inconvenience,' and offer a solution, not excuses." Imani nodded, fighting back tears of frustration. She'd negotiated million-dollar contracts without breaking a sweat, but here she was nearly crying over spilled coffee. "Hey," a voice said beside her during their break. "Don't let Roy get to you. He's tough on everyone." The speaker was an older woman with kind eyes and laugh lines. "I'm Sophia," she said. 23 years as a flight attendant, now helping with training occasionally." "Thanks," Imani said, grateful for the kindness. "I'm Imani. This is harder than I expected." "Always is," Sophia nodded. "But worth it. Best job I've ever had despite the challenges. Where are you hoping to be assigned after training?" "International." "Routes," Imani said. "Hopefully London to Singapore." Sophia's expression changed slightly. "That's an interesting choice for a newcomer." "Why?" Imani asked, trying to keep her tone casual. "I heard it's one of the best routes." "It is," Sophia said carefully. "Very exclusive. Same crew for years now. They don't usually take new people." "Really? I thought there was a rotation policy." "There is," Sophia confirmed. "But policies have exceptions, don't they? Especially when the right people are involved." Before Imani could ask more, Diane called them back to training. But the exchange confirmed what Imani had suspected. There was something unusual about that route's staffing. By the end of week 3, the class had shrunk. 2 trainees had quit, finding the physical and emotional demands too taxing. Another had been asked to leave after repeatedly failing safety drills. Imani stuck it out despite aching feet, memorization-induced headaches, and the constant fear of her true identity being discovered. She'd made friends with Lee and a few others, careful to maintain her cover story while building relationships that might prove useful. One evening, staying late to practice service procedures in the mock-up cabin, Imani overheard voices from the instructor's office. "Don't care what the official policy is," a man was saying. Imani recognized Greg Porter's voice with a jolt. "Williams wants Thompson on his crew, and what Williams wants, he gets. End of discussion." "She's not ready," Diane's voice replied. "Accelerated program or not, she needs more experience before—" "Did I stutter?" Greg snapped. "Make it happen. There are special arrangements for that route. Thompson comes highly recommended." Imani's heart raced. Thompson, her cover name. They were talking about fast-tracking her to the London-Singapore route, but not because of her father's influence as she'd assumed. Someone named Williams, probably Tyler Williams, the flight purser she'd identified, wanted her specifically. But why? She'd never met the man. Unless a chill ran down her spine. Had her cover been blown? Did they know who she really was? No, that couldn't be it. If they knew her true identity, they'd be removing her from training, not expediting her assignment to the very route she wanted to investigate, which meant something else was happening. Someone had noticed her and pulled strings to get her on that crew. The conversation in the office moved on to other matters, and Imani slipped away, mind racing. This might actually work in her favor. getting her exactly where she needed to be. But it also suggested the situation was even more complex than she'd initially thought. The next day, during their lunch break, Imani sought out Sophia. "Can I ask you something?" she said, sitting down beside the veteran flight attendant. "It's about the London-Singapore route." Sophia glanced around before answering. "What about it?" "I heard someone mention a purser named Williams. Tyler Williams. Do you know him?" Sophia's expression grew guarded. "Everyone knows Tyler. Been with the company almost as long as I have. Why?" "Just curious," Imani said lightly. "His name came up." Sophia studied her for a moment. "Word of advice? Be careful around Tyler. He runs a tight ship, expects loyalty. Very particular about his crew." "What? Do you mean by particular?" "Let's just say not everyone fits his requirements," Sophia said carefully. "But once you're in his circle, the perks can be good. Very good." "Like what?" "Better layover hotels, priority scheduling, extra per diem somehow." Sophia shrugged. "Some say there are other benefits too for those who play by his rules. And if you don't play by his rules, then you don't last on his crew," Sophia said simply. "Listen, Imani, you seem nice, smart. If you get assigned to Tyler's route, and word is you might, just keep your eyes open and your mouth shut, at least at first. Learn the system before you decide whether to be part of it." The warning only strengthened Imani's resolve to uncover whatever was happening. The remaining weeks of training flew by in a flurry of tests, simulations, and practical exams. Imani pushed herself harder than she ever had, determined to excel not just for her investigation, but because she'd developed genuine respect for the profession. On their final day, Mrs. Patel addressed the remaining 18 trainees. "Congratulations," she said with a rare smile. "You've completed one of the most rigorous training programs in the airline industry. Your route assignments will be posted this afternoon." Lee bounced with excitement beside Imani. "This is it. Where are you hoping for?" "London, Singapore," Imani said truthfully. "Seriously? That's like winning the lottery for new flight attendants," Lee said, impressed. "I'm hoping for anything international, but I'd settle for domestic to start." When the assignments were posted, there was a mix of cheers and groans. Lee got New York to Los Angeles, not international, but a prestigious domestic route. And there, beside Thompson Imani, was exactly what she'd been working toward: London, Singapore. "No way," Lee exclaimed, reading over her shoulder. "How did you pull that off?" "Just lucky, I guess," Imani said, trying to contain her mix of triumph and apprehension. Later that evening, she called her father from her apartment, which she'd be vacating tomorrow to move into company housing. "I got it," she told him. "The London-Singapore route. But there's something strange. They specifically requested me." "Who did?" Malcolm asked, concern evident in his voice. "The flight purser, Tyler Williams, and Greg Porter made it happen." She filled him in on what she'd overheard and learned from Sophia. "I don't like this," her father said after a long pause. "It sounds like they're bringing you into whatever they're doing, which gives me the perfect opportunity to find out exactly what that is," Imani pointed out. "Or puts you in danger," Malcolm countered. "Maybe we should reconsider." "Dad, I've come too far to back out now," Imani insisted. "Besides, we've already arranged for Bernard to have security personnel on my flights. I'll be careful." After a moment, Malcolm sighed. "All right, but the second you feel unsafe, you pull the plug. Promise me." "I promise," Imani said. That night, she packed her few belongings and laid out her new uniform for the next day, the distinctive skyline navy blue with silver trim. In just 72 hours, she would board her first flight as a crew member, headed for London. As she fell asleep, Imani reflected on how much she'd learned in these past weeks, not just about being a flight attendant, but about the airline her father had built. She'd gained a new appreciation for the men and women who made the passenger experience what it was, often under difficult conditions, and she was more determined than ever to root out whatever corruption had infected that system, for their sake. as much as for her father's. Imani stood in front of the staff entrance at Heathrow Airport, heart pounding beneath her crisp Navy uniform. After 6 weeks of training and a positioning flight to London the day before, this was it. Her first official flight as part of the crew. "You must be Thompson," a voice said behind her. The new girl. She turned to see a tall man with salt and pepper hair and a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. His name badge read, Tyler Williams, Purser. "Yes, sir," Imani replied, extending her hand. "Imani Thompson, it's a pleasure to meet you." Tyler's handshake was firm, his gaze evaluating. "Heard good things about you. Let's see if they're true. Crew briefing in 20 minutes, room B14. As he walked away, Imani took a deep breath. This was the man at the center of her investigation, the one who'd specifically requested her on his crew. She needed to understand why. The briefing room was already half full when she arrived. 5 other flight attendants sat around a table, cups of coffee in hand, chatting like old friends. They fell silent when she entered. Well, said a woman with perfectly styled blonde hair. "You must be the new addition. I'm Vanessa, first-class cabin." "Imani," she replied, taking the empty seat Vanessa indicated beside her. One by one, the others introduced themselves. Raj and Lutia, who worked business class. Dominic and Keisha, who handled premium economy, and Pablo, who would be working economy with Imani. "Don't look so nervous," Pablo said with a friendly smile. "We don't bite. Much." The others laughed, but there was something off about the atmosphere. Tension Imani couldn't quite name. Tyler arrived precisely on time, closing the door behind him. "Right, let's make this quick. 14-hour flight to Singapore today, full in all cabins, standard service, but..." He paused, glancing at Imani. "We have a few special passengers to take care of. I'll brief you individually on those." The meeting continued with routine matters. Weather reports, expected turbulence, passenger load. But Imani noticed significant glances exchanged whenever Tyler mentioned special arrangements or priority service. After the briefing, as the others filed out, Tyler held Imani back. "First long-haul flight," he said. It wasn't a question. "Stick with Pablo. Do exactly as he tells you. Don't take initiative. Don't chat with passengers unless necessary. And most importantly, anything you see or hear on this flight stays within the crew. We're family here. Understand?" "Yes, sir," Imani said, meeting his gaze steadily. "Good." Tyler nodded. "You came highly recommended. Don't make me regret bringing you on." As they walked to the gate, Imani wondered again who had recommended her and why. She'd been careful to maintain her cover throughout training. The boarding process was smooth, with Imani and Pablo handling their section of economy efficiently. Imani kept her eyes open, noting small oddities. Vanessa slipping what looked like envelopes to certain first-class passengers. Raj discreetly moving a man from business class to first without checking any documentation. Tyler spending an unusual amount of time with 3 passengers who seemed to know him personally. Once airborne, the real work began. Imani threw herself into her duties, determined to appear both competent and unremarkable. As they prepared the meal service, Pablo pulled her aside in the galley. "Listen," he said in a low voice. "We do things a bit differently on this route. You'll see. Just follow my lead and don't ask questions, okay?" "Of course," Imani said, trying to sound eager to please. The meal service revealed the first concrete evidence of wrongdoing. Pablo showed her how to shortchange the economy cabin on meal options. "Always say we've run out of the chicken early," he instructed. "Save at least 10. Tyler collects them after." "What does he do with them?" Imani asked innocently. Pablo gave her a look. "What did I say about questions? But since you'll find out anyway, they go to first class as extras for special passengers, or sometimes they get sold to economy passengers who complain enough and are willing to pay a little convenience fee." Imani nodded as if this made perfect sense, while mentally documenting everything. 3 hours into the flight, she witnessed Vanessa collecting duty-free items that hadn't been purchased through official channels. These disappeared into a locked trolley that Tyler later wheeled into the crew rest area. During her break, Imani managed to text her father from the lavatory using the secure phone they'd arranged. Definite irregularities, multiple schemes running, continuing observation. Back. On duty, Pablo seemed to be warming to her. "You're good," he said as they prepared the mid-flight snack service. "Quick learner, not like the last newbie they sent us." "What happened to them?" Imani asked. "Couldn't handle our system. Started asking too many questions. Tyler had them reassigned after one flight." Pablo lowered his voice. "Between us, this route is a goldmine if you play it right. Stick with me and you'll make twice your salary in, let's call them bonuses." "Sounds good to me," Imani said with a conspiratorial smile. "I didn't become a flight attendant for the base pay." Pablo laughed. "I like you, Thompson. You might just work out." As the flight progressed, Imani cataloged at least 5 different schemes. First, the meal scam Pablo had shown her, where premium meals were diverted and either sold unofficially or given to special passengers, who Pablo hinted were business contacts of Tyler's. Second, the duty-free scheme, where items were brought on board unofficially, sold to passengers, and the money pocketed by the crew. Third, a seating racket where certain passengers paid crew members directly for upgrades that weren't recorded in the system. Fourth, a bizarre arrangement where some passengers handed sealed envelopes to Tyler, which he stored in his locked briefcase. And fifth, most disturbing of all, what appeared to be small packages being moved between certain passengers, carry-ons during the service, with crew members acting as intermediaries. By the time they began descent into Singapore, Imani's head was spinning with all she'd witnessed. The scale was far beyond what she'd imagined. This wasn't just petty theft or minor rule-breaking. This was organized, systematic corruption that had to involve people beyond just the flight crew. After landing, as passengers disembarked, Tyler approached her. "Good work today, Thompson," he said. "Pablo says you're a natural. Join us for a drink at the hotel? The crew always gets together on layovers." Imani knew this was crucial. The after-hours socializing would likely reveal even more about the operation. "I'd love to," she said. "Just need to freshen up first." In her hotel room, Imani quickly photographed her notes and sent them to her father and Bernard. Then she changed into casual clothes and headed down to the hotel bar where the crew had gathered. The atmosphere was jovial, with drinks flowing freely. Imani nursed a single cocktail, wanting to keep her wits about her. The conversation flowed around her, gossip about other crews, complaints about schedule changes, jokes about difficult singers. Then Tyler clinked his glass for attention. "To our newest family member," he said, raising his drink toward Imani, "who proved today she might have what it takes to be part of our little enterprise." "To Imani," the others chorused. "Now," Tyler continued, his voice dropping, "let's talk business. Pablo reports that our new colleague handled herself well today. No awkward questions, no hesitation. I think it's time for a proper welcome." He pulled an envelope from his pocket and slid it across the table to Imani. "Your first bonus." Imani opened it to find several $100s in mixed currency. She forced a smile. "Thank you, I appreciate the warm welcome." "That's just the beginning," Vanessa said, leaning in. "Wait until you see what we clear on the holiday routes." For the next hour, the crew spoke more openly about their system, assuming Imani was now complicit. They described how it had evolved over 3 years, starting with small-scale duty-free scams and growing to include multiple revenue streams. "The best part," Raj explained, "is that we have protection. Management looks the other way because certain people get a cut." "Which people?" Imani asked, trying to sound merely curious. "Let's just say Greg Porter doesn't ask questions about our routes special arrangements because he benefits from them," Tyler said with a smirk. "And he keeps others from asking questions too. So Greg Porter was definitely involved." Imani had suspected as much, but confirmation was valuable. "What about security checks?" she asked. "Inventory reconciliation?" "All handled," Lucia assured her. "We have people in the right departments. As long as the paperwork matches at the end, no one looks too closely at what happens in between. Imani was stunned by the scale and sophistication of the operation. This wasn't just a crew breaking rules. It was a network that extended into multiple departments. One thing you should know, Tyler said, his tone growing serious. Loyalty is everything in our family. We take care of each other, but anyone who threatens that. He left the statement hanging. I understand, Imani said. I know how to keep secrets. Good, Tyler nodded. Because once you're in, you're in. No backing out. The implied threat was clear, but Imani maintained her composure. I wouldn't want to. This is exactly the opportunity I've been looking for. Later, alone in her hotel room, Imani called her father. It's worse than we thought, she told him. Greg Porter is definitely involved, and there are others in various departments. They've built a whole shadow operation. Do you have enough evidence yet? Malcolm asked, concern evident in his voice. Not quite, Imani replied. I've seen a lot, but it's all circumstantial so far. I need to document specific transactions, get names of the other accomplices in headquarters. I think they're going to bring me deeper into the operation over the next few flights. Be careful, Imani. If they suspect anything, I will be, she promised. But I need to see this through. Over the next 3 flights, Imani was gradually initiated into more aspects of the crew's operation. She learned that Tyler maintained a detailed ledger of all their unofficial transactions, kept encrypted on his tablet. She discovered that certain cargo shipments were being misreported, with items removed before official inventory checks. Most disturbing of all, she found that maintenance issues were sometimes ignored or downplayed to avoid delays that would disrupt their lucrative schemes. On her 4th flight, Tyler assigned Imani to handle the special service for a group of 3 businessmen in first class. This involved delivering sealed envelopes between them and other passengers in business class, without recording these interactions in the flight log. Consider this your final test, Tyler told her. Do this right, and you're fully part of the family. Imani performed the task flawlessly, all while using a tiny camera hidden in her watch, provided by Bernard, to document the exchanges. The businessmen treated her with the casual disregard of people who were used to paying for cooperation, barely acknowledging her except to verify she was Tyler's new girl. During the crew rest period, while the others slept, Imani managed to photograph several pages of notes Vanessa had carelessly left visible, detailing upcoming special arrangements and listing contact names at headquarters who were part of the scheme. By the time they landed back in London, Imani had been fully accepted into the crew's confidence. They now spoke freely around her about all aspects of their operation, including plans for an especially profitable run during the upcoming holiday season. We cleared triple our usual take during Christmas flights, Dominic explained as they shared a taxi to their layover hotel. Passengers carrying expensive gifts, people desperate for upgrades to get home to family. It's a gold mine. Plus our special arrangements with the courier service, Keisha added. That alone is worth an extra $2,000 each. Imani raised her eyebrows. Courier service? You'll see, Tyler said from the front seat. That's your next level of involvement. But first I need to be sure you're fully committed. The next morning, Tyler invited Imani to breakfast alone in the hotel restaurant. You've impressed me, he said without preamble. You learn quickly, keep your mouth shut, and the passengers respond well to you. I think you're ready for more responsibility. I'd like that, Imani said. Good, because I have a proposition. Our operation has been growing, and I need someone I can trust to help manage the Singapore end while I handle London. He slid a key card across the table. This opens a storage locker at Changi Airport. Inside is merchandise that needs to move back to London on our next flight, outside the official manifest. Imani's heart raced. This was it. Direct evidence of smuggling. What kind of merchandise? Nothing that would shock you, Tyler said smoothly. Luxury items that would attract high import duties, electronics, some designer products. All we do is help them avoid unnecessary taxation. I see, Imani nodded. And my role would be? Collect the merchandise, distribute it among the crew's luggage to bring back, then help deliver it to our contacts in London. Simple. for which you'll receive a percentage significantly higher than what you've been getting. Sounds straightforward. Enough, Imani said, pocketing the keycard. When do I start? Next Singapore layover. 3 days from now. Tyler studied her face. This is the point of no return, Imani. Once you handle the merchandise, you're as implicated as the rest of us. It's protection for everyone. Understand? Perfectly, Imani replied, meeting his gaze steadily. I'm all in. Back in her room, Imani immediately contacted her father. I've got it, she said. Direct evidence of smuggling, plus documentation, of the broader operation. Tyler's bringing me into their import-export scheme. That's enough, Malcolm said firmly. We end this now, before you get any deeper. Not yet, Imani insisted. The Singapore connection is key. If we move too soon, we might miss crucial evidence about who else is involved. Give me one more round trip. After a long pause, Malcolm agreed reluctantly. One more. Then we shut it down, regardless of what you find. Bernard will increase security personnel on your flights. What Imani didn't tell her father was that she'd begun to suspect the corruption went even higher than Greg Porter. Certain comments, particularly from Tyler, hinted at protection from someone with significant authority, possibly board level. She needed to know how far this reached before bringing it all down. As she prepared for her next flight, Imani couldn't help feeling a mix of anticipation and dread. She was close to unraveling the entire scheme, but the deeper she went, the greater the risk. Tyler's words echoed in her mind. Once you're in, you're in. No backing out. Little did he know that backing out was exactly what she planned to do, but not before she had everything she needed to bring down everyone involved, no matter how high up they might be. The storage locker at Changi Airport was tucked away in a service corridor, far from passenger areas. Imani glanced over her shoulder before sliding Tyler's keycard into the lock. The small light flashed green, and she pulled the door open. Inside were 4 unmarked black duffel bags. Imani unzipped one carefully, finding it packed with high-end electronics still in their boxes. The latest smartphones and tablets that wouldn't be released in the UK for another month. The second bag contained designer handbags, their distinctive patterns partially visible through protective cloth coverings. The third held small velvet pouches that, when Imani peeked inside one, revealed glittering jewelry. It was the fourth bag that made her breath catch. Unlike the others, it contained flat packages wrapped in vacuum-sealed plastic. Each was about the size of a paperback book, but dense and heavy. Imani didn't need to open them to guess what they might contain. This went beyond duty-free scams and unauthorized upgrades. This was serious smuggling. She quickly photographed everything with her hidden camera, being careful to document identifying details. Then, following Tyler's instructions, she divided the contents among 6 smaller bags, each labeled with a crew member's name. Her own bag was the lightest, containing only electronics, a test of trust, she assumed. Back at the hotel, Tyler was waiting in the lobby. All set? He asked casually. Yes, Imani replied, keeping her voice level despite her racing heart. Everything's distributed per your instructions. Good. He nodded, satisfied. Bring your bag to my room. I'll explain the next steps. In Tyler's suite, the other crew members were already gathered, a tense excitement in the air. Right, Tyler began once Imani arrived. Tomorrow's flight is particularly important. We have high-value merchandise moving both ways. Imani has handled the Singapore pickup beautifully. He nodded appreciatively in her direction. London drop-offs will be coordinated by Raj and Lucia. The rest of you know your roles. He pulled out his tablet and showed them a seating chart with certain passengers highlighted. These are our contacts on tomorrow's flight. 3 in first class, 2 in business, 1 in premium economy. They'll be moving additional merchandise through security in their carry-ons. During service, we facilitate transfers as usual. Vanessa, you handle first-class exchanges. Raj and Lucia, business. Dominic and Keisha, the premium economy contact. Pablo and Imani, you'll be receiving items for storage in the rear galley lockup. Imani's mind raced as she realized the full scope of the operation. The crew wasn't just smuggling items in their own luggage, they were facilitating a transfer network, using passengers as unwitting or complicit carriers. "What about security checks?" she asked, playing her role of the eager newcomer. "Everything. Going through passenger security is designed to pass inspection," Tyler explained. "Our contacts are very professional. Once it's on board, we handle the consolidation. The real challenge is customs on arrival, which is why we distribute among crew luggage. We have arrangements with certain customs officers, but better safe than sorry." The term arrangements clearly meant bribes, Imani noted mentally. "One more thing," Tyler added, his tone growing serious. "We've been hearing rumors about internal investigations. Nothing specific, but headquarters is apparently looking more closely at inventory discrepancies. So we'll be extra careful for the next few weeks. Minimum personal communication about operations, nothing in writing, no unexplained absences." The others nodded, faces grim. Imani kept her expression neutral while her mind worked frantically. If they were already suspicious of an investigation, she needed to be especially careful. "Who do you think is behind it?" Pablo asked. "Hard to say," Tyler shrugged. "But Porter's handling it. He has too much to lose to let anyone dig too deep." After the meeting broke up, Imani returned to her room and immediately called her father. "It's worse than we thought," she said without preamble. "They're running a full smuggling operation using passengers as mules, and they're suspicious about an investigation." "Then we end it now," Malcolm insisted. "You've got enough evidence." "Not quite," Imani argued. "I need to document the London end of the operation, who receives the goods, how they're distributed, and most importantly, I need proof of Greg Porter's direct involvement, not just hearsay." "Imani, this is getting too dangerous. If they suspect, they don't suspect me," she cut in. "They trust me enough to involve me in the Singapore pickup. One more flight, Dad, just London to Singapore and back. Then we'll have everything we need to shut down the entire network." After a long silence, Malcolm reluctantly agreed. "Bernard will have 6 security personnel on your flights, posing as passengers. If there's any sign of trouble, they'll intervene immediately." "Tell them to keep their distance," Imani cautioned. "This crew is observant. They'll notice if anyone's watching too closely." The next morning, as they prepared for boarding, Imani felt the weight of her hidden camera and the smuggled electronics in her crew bag. She'd taken photos of everything, including the crew's contraband inventory lists and Tyler's passenger contact chart. But the most damning evidence would come during the flight itself, when she could document the actual transfers taking place. Boarding proceeded smoothly, with Imani noting that all the contact passengers Tyler had identified were indeed on board. As they prepared for takeoff, Pablo nudged her. "Keep an eye on 43C, he whispered. "He'll signal when he's ready to hand off his package. Should be after the first meal service." Imani nodded, scanning the cabin until she located 43C, a middle-aged businessman who appeared completely ordinary. Once they were airborne and the meal service began, Imani watched her section carefully. Everything seemed routine until she noticed 43C pressing his call button. "I'll take it," she told Pablo, moving down the aisle. "Yes, sir?" she asked politely. "I'm having an issue with my entertainment system," the man said, his eyes conveying a different message. "Perhaps you could check it?" "Of course," Imani replied, leaning over as if to examine the screen. The man slipped a small package into the pocket of her apron. "I believe it just needs a reset," he said more loudly. "I'll take care of that right away," Imani assured him, feeling the weight of the package against her leg as she walked back to the galley. There, Pablo was waiting expectantly. "Got it?" Imani nodded, removing the package, a padded envelope about the size of her hand. "Good," Pablo said, taking it from her. "Tyler wants all packages in the secure trolley immediately." Throughout the flight, Imani observed similar exchanges, happening across all cabins. Vanessa collected 3 packages in first class. Raj and Lucia received 2 in business. By the time they began descent into London, the secure trolley in the crew area contained at least 8 mysterious packages, none of which appeared on any manifest. After landing, Tyler instructed certain crew members, including Imani, to remain behind after the passengers disembarked. "Clearance team is here," he announced as a ground staff member Imani didn't recognize entered the aircraft. The man nodded to Tyler and proceeded directly to the secure trolley, unlocking it with his own key. All accounted for? He asked. All 8, Tyler confirmed, plus the 6 in crew luggage. Good, the man said. Usual arrangement for customs. Yellow lane, Officer Chen is on duty. Show your crew IDs, nothing to declare. The plan worked flawlessly. The crew passed through customs with minimal inspection, their contraband undetected. Outside in the arrivals area, 2 men in airport service uniforms met them, taking possession of the smuggled goods with practiced efficiency. Meet at the Anchor tonight, 8 p.m., Tyler told the crew. Bonus distribution. The Anchor turned out to be a small pub in a quiet corner of London, its back room perfect for private meetings. Imani arrived exactly at 8, finding the entire crew already present along with 3 men she didn't recognize. One was the ground staff member from the plane. The others were expensively dressed and exuded authority. Tyler made the introductions. Imani, meet Mr. Zhao and Mr. Rivera. They're our business associates. The men nodded coolly, assessing her with calculating eyes. New blood, Mr. Zhao commented. She's working out? Very well, Tyler assured him. Handled the Singapore pickup. Perfectly. Good, Mr. Rivera said, his accent suggesting South American origins. We're expanding operations next quarter. Need reliable people. The conversation shifted to business, with Tyler reporting on the successful shipment and planning future runs. Imani listened carefully, noting names, dates, and connection points. Her hidden camera captured it all. The meeting concluded with the distribution of bonuses, thick envelopes of cash for each crew member. Imani's contained $2,000. Your cut will grow with your involvement, Tyler promised her. This is just the beginning. As they left the pub, Tyler held Imani back. One more thing, he said. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Porter wants to meet you. Imani's pulse quickened. Greg Porter. Why? He likes to know everyone involved in the operation, especially promising new talent. Tyler's expression was unreadable. Don't worry, it's a good thing, means you're being noticed. This was exactly what Imani had been working toward, direct evidence linking Porter to the smuggling ring, but it also meant increased scrutiny from one of the key players. Where? She asked. His office, 18th floor at headquarters. Tell his assistant you're there about the route optimization project. It's our code. The next morning, Imani dressed carefully in civilian clothes, choosing an outfit that would be appropriate for an office visit but wouldn't stand out. She wore a brooch that Bernard had provided, containing both a camera and a recording device. Skylines. Headquarters was a gleaming tower of glass and steel. Imani felt strange entering as Imani Thompson rather than as herself, Vice President Imani Johnson, who had an office on the 20th floor. Porter's assistant barely glanced at her when she mentioned the route optimization project, simply waving her through to the inner office. Greg Porter sat behind a massive desk, his expression smug as he looked up from his computer. Ah, the new addition to Tyler's crew, he said by way of greeting. Sit. Imani took the offered seat, maintaining her cover persona of eager new recruit. Thompson, isn't it? Tyler speaks highly of your adaptability. Thank you, sir, Imani replied. I'm happy to be part of the team. Porter studied her for an uncomfortable moment. Do you know why this works, Thompson? This whole operation? Efficiency? Good planning? Imani suggested. Porter laughed. Structure, hierarchy, everyone knowing their place in the system. Tyler runs the crews, I manage corporate oversight, and above me, he paused meaningfully. Well, let's just say we have protection at the highest levels. Imani kept her expression neutral despite her shock. Was he implying board-level involvement? The system works because everyone benefits, Porter continued. The crews make excellent bonuses. Our business partners move their merchandise without tedious customs delays. And the company? He smiled coldly. Certain executives receive very generous consulting fees. I understand. Manny said carefully. Everyone plays their part. Exactly. Porter nodded approvingly. Your part is to follow Tyler's instructions precisely. Do that, and you'll have a very lucrative career with Skyline. His tone hardened. Deviate, and you'll find yourself not just unemployed but unemployable. In any industry, am I clear? Crystal clear, Imani replied, meeting his gaze steadily. Good. Now your next flight is tomorrow, correct? London to Singapore? Yes, sir. This one's particularly important. We have VIP merchandise moving. Tyler has the details. Porter stood, indicating the meeting was over. Don't disappoint us. Thompson. Outside, Imani took a deep breath, her mind racing. She now had direct evidence of Porter's involvement, recorded and ready to be used. But his mention of protection at the highest levels was deeply troubling. How high did this corruption go? She called her father from a coffee shop several blocks away. I met with Porter, she told him. Got everything on record, direct admission of his involvement in the smuggling operation. That's enough then, Malcolm said firmly. We end it now. Not quite, Imani replied. He implied protection from someone above him. Board level, Dad. We need to know who. Absolutely not, Malcolm's voice was steel. You've already gone too far. We have enough to remove Porter and the crew. The rest we can investigate through official channels. Imani knew he was right, but her instincts pushed her to see this through completely. One more flight, she argued. Tomorrow's run is special. Porter emphasized its importance. Whatever's moving might lead us to his protector. It's too risky, Malcolm insisted. If this goes as high as you suspect, they won't hesitate to protect themselves. I'll be careful, Imani promised, and Bernard's team will be on the flight. After tomorrow I'm done, I promise. After a long silence, Malcolm reluctantly agreed. Last chance, Imani. After tomorrow's flight, we shut it down, regardless of what you find. Agreed, she said, relieved. I'll call you from Singapore. The owl. Next morning, as Imani prepared for the flight, she noticed an unusual tension among the crew. Tyler was snappish during the briefing, checking his watch repeatedly. Vanessa and Raj exchanged worried glances. Something was different about this. Run. Special procedures today, Tyler announced once they were alone in the crew area. We have high-value cargo moving in diplomatic pouches. Absolutely no documentation, no inspection, no questions. The pouches remain locked in the forward galley at all times. Diplomatic pouches? That was a new level of corruption, involving embassy staff or documents. Who's the diplomat? Lucia asked. You don't need to know, Tyler replied sharply. Just follow the procedure. Throughout the boarding process, Imani watched for anything unusual. Near the end, a well-dressed man with an attaché case, handcuffed to his wrist, boarded, escorted by airport security. He was seated in first class. The attaché case stowed in a special compartment near the galley. Once airborne, Imani had limited access to first class, but she managed to observe Vanessa and Tyler in frequent conversation with the mysterious passenger. After the first meal service, Tyler brought a diplomatic pouch, a sealed bag with official markings, to the rear galley where Imani was working. Secure this with the other supplies, he instructed, his tone leaving no room for questions. Do not open it. Do not let anyone else handle it. The pouch was surprisingly heavy for its size. Imani secured it as instructed, but not before activating her hidden camera to record its official markings and seals. An hour later, during a period of turbulence, Imani noticed something alarming. The poorly secured diplomatic pouch had shifted, tearing open slightly. Through the rip, she could see what looked like bundles of currency. She quickly resecured the pouch, but her mind was reeling. This wasn't just smuggling goods to avoid import duties. This was potentially money laundering or illegal currency movement. The risk level had just increased dramatically. These weren't crimes that people got fired for. These were crimes people went to prison for, or worse, crimes people might kill to cover up. In the privacy of the lavatory, Imani sent an urgent message to Bernard. Diplomatic pouch, currency, possible money laundering, high risk, alert security team. For the remainder of the flight, Imani maintained her cover while documenting everything she could about the diplomatic pouch and its handling. She noted that upon landing in Singapore, the first-class passenger with the attaché case was met by airport officials and escorted through a private customs channel. Tyler instructed Imani to bring the diplomatic pouch from the rear galley. He took it without comment and handed it to a ground staff member who had boarded before the other passengers disembarked. At the hotel, Imani declined the crew's invitation to dinner, claiming fatigue. Instead, she met with Bernard in a secure location they'd arranged. "This has escalated beyond what we anticipated," Bernard said gravely after reviewing her evidence. "Diplomatic pouches have immunity from search or seizure. They're using that protection to move currency across borders." Which explains Porter's reference to protection at the highest levels, Imani reasoned. Someone with diplomatic connections must be involved. "This isn't just airline corruption anymore," Bernard warned. "This could involve government officials, international crime syndicates. We need to proceed with extreme caution." "Agreed," Imani said. "But I still need to identify Porter's protector before we move. The return flight is our last chance." Bernard looked troubled. "Your father wants to end this now. He's prepared to. Recall the entire crew and launch a formal investigation. That would tip them off," Imani argued. "We'd lose any chance of catching the mastermind. One more flight, Bernard. Then it's over, I promise." After long deliberation, Bernard reluctantly agreed to support her through the return flight, but with enhanced security measures. "We'll have 10 personnel on board, not 6. Any sign of danger, we intervene immediately." That night, Imani couldn't sleep. The evidence she'd gathered painted a picture of corruption far more extensive than she'd initially suspected. What had begun as an investigation into customer complaints and inventory discrepancies had led to international smuggling, bribery of customs officials, and now potentially diplomatic corruption and money laundering. She was close to unraveling the entire network. One more flight would give her the final pieces of the puzzle: the identity of Porter's high-level protector and proof of their involvement. Then she could bring down not just the corrupt crew but everyone involved, no matter how powerful they might be. As dawn broke over Singapore, Imani prepared for what would be her final flight as Imani Thompson, flight attendant. By the time they landed in London, she would have everything she needed, and then Imani Johnson, vice president of operations, would emerge to deliver justice to those who had corrupted her father's airline. The crew gathered at Changi Airport's staff entrance, the morning sun already promising a scorching day. Imani arrived last, having spent extra time securing her evidence and confirming arrangements with Bernard's security team. 10 operatives were now booked on the flight, strategically seated throughout all cabins. "Cutting it close, Thompson," Tyler remarked as she joined the group. His usual cool demeanor seemed strained. "Everything all right?" "Just overslept," Imani said with an apologetic smile. "Late night." Tyler's eyes narrowed slightly, but he nodded. "Don't make it a habit. Today's too important for slip-ups." During the crew briefing, Tyler was unusually thorough, emphasizing security protocols and minimal interaction with certain passengers. "We have VIPs in seats 2A, 2C, and 4F. They are not to be disturbed except for essential service. No conversation, no special requests, clear?" The crew murmured their understanding, but Imani could sense their curiosity. This level of secrecy was unusual even for their operation. "One more thing," Tyler added. "We have special cargo in the diplomatic pouch again. Thompson, since you handled it well on the inbound flight, you'll be responsible for it today. Keep it secure in the rear galley locker. Do not leave it unattended at any time." "Understood," Imani replied, meeting his gaze steadily. As they boarded the aircraft to prepare for passengers, Pablo fell into step beside her. "You've moved up fast," he commented. "Tyler doesn't usually trust newbies with the diplomatic items." "I guess I made a good impression," Imani said with a shrug. Pablo lowered his voice. "Just be careful. Those pouches, they're different. Higher stakes, different players, the kind of people you don't want to cross." Before Imani could ask more, Tyler called Pablo away, leaving her to wonder about the warning. It confirmed her suspicions that the diplomatic pouches represented a more dangerous level of operation than the crew's usual smuggling activities. Boarding proceeded normally until a commotion at the door caught Imani's attention. 3 men in beige business suits were boarding, escorted by airport security. One carried a slim attaché case handcuffed to his wrist, different from the passenger on the previous flight but clearly serving the same function. VIPs, Vanessa whispered as she passed Imani. Board members and their guest, the one with the case is from the Ministry of International Trade, a government official. This was the connection Imani had been looking for, direct evidence linking the smuggling operation to someone with diplomatic privileges and government authority. Once boarding was complete, the same ground staff member who had handled the diplomatic pouch in London appeared, carrying a sealed bag with official markings. He handed it directly to Tyler, who then brought it to Imani. "Secure this immediately," he instructed. Same protocol as before. The pouch was even heavier this time. Imani locked it in the designated compartment, her mind racing. Based on weight and size, it likely contained more currency than the previous one. She activated her hidden camera to document the transfer and storage. As they prepared for departure, Imani caught sight of one of Bernard's security team, a woman, posing as a business traveler in 28D. Their eyes met briefly, the woman giving an almost imperceptible nod. The team was in place. Once airborne, the flight proceeded smoothly. Imani performed her duties flawlessly while maintaining careful observation of all unusual activities. The VIPs in first class remained isolated, interacting only with Tyler and Vanessa. The diplomatic pouch stayed secured in the rear galley. 3 hours into the flight, at cruising altitude over the Indian Ocean, Tyler approached Imani during a quiet moment. "You've impressed a lot of people," he said, leaning against the galley wall. "Porter, our business associates, even our friend from the ministry." "I'm just doing my job," Imani replied modestly. "No, you're doing much more than the job," Tyler corrected her. "You've shown initiative, discretion, qualities we value highly in our extended family. I appreciate the recognition." Tyler glanced around, ensuring they were alone. "After we land, there's a meeting. Big players. They're considering expanding operations to the North American routes. Your name has come up as someone who might help manage that expansion." Imani feigned surprise and gratitude. "I'm honored. That sounds like a significant opportunity." "It is," Tyler nodded. "Very significant. Porter will make the formal offer." He paused, studying her. "You know, it's interesting. When your name first came to my attention, I was skeptical. Your background check seemed almost too perfect. But you've proven yourself in action, which is what really matters." The comment sent a chill through Imani. Had they investigated her cover story more thoroughly than she'd anticipated? "My background check?" she asked, keeping her tone casual. "Standard procedure for anyone joining our operation," Tyler said with a shrug. "Nothing personal. Security is paramount in our line of work." Before she could respond, the call button chimed from first class, and Tyler moved away. "Think about the North American opportunity," he called over his shoulder. "It would mean a significant promotion." Imani maintained her composed facade, but internally she was reassessing the risk. If they'd run a background check, how deep had they gone? Her cover identity was thorough but not impenetrable to serious investigation. At the mid-flight meal service, Imani noticed increased activity around the first-class cabin. Tyler and the VIP with the attaché case disappeared into the front lavatory together for several minutes. When they emerged, the case was still handcuffed to the man's wrist, but he seemed more relaxed, sharing a laugh with Tyler. During her break, Imani managed to send a secure message to Bernard. "Meeting after landing. Potential expansion to North American routes. Government official confirmed involved. Proceeding with plan." The response came quickly. "Security team ready. Extraction protocol in place. Confirm go-no-go 1 hour before landing." As the flight progressed, Imani gathered final pieces of evidence, documenting crew movements and passenger interactions. She noted that Raj made 3 separate trips to the forward cargo hold, unusual during flight, returning each time with small packages that went directly to Tyler. 5 hours from London, something unexpected happened. During a turbulent patch, the diplomatic pouch shifted in its locker, revealing a tier similar to the one Imani had noticed on the previous flight. But this time, what she glimpsed wasn't just currency. Among the cash bundles was a small, clear package containing what appeared to be white crystalline powder, drugs. They weren't just smuggling luxury goods and currency. They were moving narcotics under diplomatic protection. This changed everything. The risk level had just increased exponentially. Drug trafficking organizations were notoriously dangerous, willing to eliminate any threat to their operations. Imani carefully resecured the pouch, her heart pounding. She needed to alert Bernard immediately, but she was due back on service, in the main cabin. As she exited the galley, she nearly collided with Pablo. "Everything okay?" he asked, eyes flicking to the locked compartment behind her. "Fine," Imani said, summoning a casual smile. "Just checking inventory for the next service." Pablo nodded, but something in his expression suggested he wasn't entirely convinced. "Tyler's looking for you. Wants to go over arrival procedures." "I'll find him right away," Imani assured him, moving past. Instead of going directly to Tyler, she took a detour to the lavatory, sending an urgent message to Bernard. "Drugs in diplomatic pouch. Situation escalated. Prepare for immediate action on landing." When she emerged, Tyler was waiting in the adjacent galley. "There you are," he said. "We need to discuss the arrival protocol. It's changed slightly for today." As Tyler explained the new procedures involving a different handoff process for the diplomatic pouch, Imani noticed Pablo watching them from the aisle, his expression unreadable. "Understood?" Tyler asked, concluding his instructions. "Perfectly," Imani replied. "I'll handle it exactly as described." "Good." Tyler checked his watch. 4 hours to landing. Everything needs to go smoothly today. We have some very important people waiting in London. As Tyler walked away, Pablo approached. "Be careful with him," he said in a low voice. "He's been asking questions about you." "What kind of questions?" Imani asked, keeping her tone light despite her internal alarm. "Background stuff. Where you trained, previous experience?" "Nah," Pablo shrugged. "Probably nothing, but he seemed focused." "Thanks for the heads up," Imani said, squeezing his arm gratefully. "I appreciate it." The warning confirmed her growing suspicion that her cover might be at risk. Had something triggered Tyler's doubts? Or was this simply the paranoia that came with criminal operations? 3 hours from London, Imani noticed increased communication among the crew. Tyler held brief, intense conversations with each crew member involved in the smuggling operation. When he reached Imani, his manner was professional but distant. "Final check," he said. "On landing, you secure the diplomatic pouch until the designated ground staff arrives. No one else touches it. Then you proceed through customs via the crew channel as usual. Meeting at headquarters, 18th floor, 2 hours after landing. Clear?" "Crystal clear," Imani confirmed. Diplomatic pouch secured until handoff, then crew customs, then headquarters. Tyler nodded curtly and moved on to Lucia. Imani used her next break to send the go signal to Bernard. "Proceed with extraction on landing. Full evidence secured. Government connection confirmed." The plan was set. Bernard's team would move once they were on the ground, securing the evidence and taking the crew into custody before they could dispose of anything incriminating. 2 hours from London, the atmosphere shifted subtly. Imani noticed Vanessa and Raj in deep conversation, repeatedly glancing in her direction. Tyler spent an unusual amount of time in the first-class cabin with the VIPs. Something felt off. During final meal service, as Imani worked in the main cabin, Keisha brushed past her. "Tyler wants you to check the pouch," she whispered. "Says the lock might be